evening. We'll sing a song and then we'll be dismissed to our classes. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you, O my soul. Take joy, my King, in what you give. Make the sweet, sweet sound in your ear. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you, O my soul. Rejoice, take joy, my King, in what you hear. Make a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. You're dismissed.
Now let's leave those doors open back there. Huh? Yeah, well, maybe you're right. But if you close it, the lights go off in there. Uh, Robert called just before church and said that he's having, well, I lost the word for it. When you're dizzy, vertigo, having vertigo. And so he's not here tonight. And Brother Lou asked me to step in quickly. I haven't been a part of this study, so I'm going to do the best I can to at least go down the path of providence. And I'm going to ask you some hard questions that I don't know the answer to, and look forward to your answers. Okay, so let's do that. I want to go to a couple of passages, and then we're going to look at three different characters in the Bible, and from the perspective of providence. The first passage I would like us to go to is in Ephesians chapter 1. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 11. Ephesians 1 and verse 11. I'll read it out. I'm going to ask y'all to interject, maybe read some more, but I'll start here. In him also, talking about in Christ, also we have obtained an inheritance, being predestined according to the purpose of him who works all things according to the counsel of his will. Now remember that one, and then we go to the other one, Romans chapter 8. You know this passage well. Romans 8 and verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. So I'm going to try to get you tonight, after understanding those two truths, that all things somehow work according to the purpose of him who's able to work all things according to his own will. So I want to take that, and then I want to apply it and have you define for me what providence is. What do you think providence is? Let's maybe take a jab at it right now. What do you think providence, the providence of God, is? Anybody? Yes, sir. Back that. Speak up now. Speak loud. So he provides for you whatever you need. Okay. Okay. And the passages we just looked at, is that what that's talking about? What do you think? You said you don't think so. Okay. He believes that God has a specific purpose in mind, and he guides me according to that purpose and that achievement. Yes. I'll try to repeat that because it was kind of quiet. The idea of providence contains within it the idea of God's foreknowledge and what needs ahead of time and what needs to be done to accomplish, I assume, not just your needs, but if we add to it your thought, whatever God's plan is. Yes, sir? That God's in control. Okay. Yeah, I'd have to say that was in accordance with Romans 8 and Ephesians 1, that God's in control. Did you have your hand up? Okay. So now I'm going to ask some questions. So I want to use three personalities in the Bible. And in line with what you've just said, I'm going to ask you to answer, I think, kind of some hard questions. Those three personalities, I want us to look at Joseph, I want us to look at Job, and I want to look at Jonah. Should be easy to remember. 3 J's, right? Joseph, Job, and Jonah. Okay. Let's take Joseph, even though Job may have been first, and it just depends on who you listen to on how old the book of Job is. But let's take Joseph first because it's first in the Bible that we have. So when Joseph was sold into slavery for being such a jerk to his brothers, which he was, and being a goody two-shoes, when they nearly killed him, but they didn't, and they sold him into slavery in Egypt, was that God's providence? Genesis 15:20, 50:20, you meant it, God meant it for good, and you meant it for evil. So did God do that? Because I saw a hand back here. Was your hand up? No? Okay. God did it. That's what you're saying. God meant it for good, and God had a hand in it. Okay, we're coming back to that. Your hands up. So it's a long view, and it's ultimately the providence for the whole Jewish people, is what Mel just said. So now here's the question I have for you, though. And so, was that a good deed or a bad deed? So you're telling me that even bad deeds can be worked for what God's ultimate purpose is. So even bad deeds can be providence. Okay. So now, understand now, this bad deed was done by people. Okay. Right. And so you believe that when people do bad things, that can be God's providence. Okay. So you believe that God works through the bad deeds that men do and turns them into providence for the good people, for the good of people. Okay. All right. So now he's sold into slavery, right? And that was by his brothers, right? Now he does well for a time. When he's doing well, is that by the providence of God that he does well as a slave in Egypt? Yeah, he does well. I mean, that, well, it doesn't just say that, though. It says that God blessed everything he put his hands to. So, good question. Would he have done that if his attitude was sour? But either way, you already said that the deeds of bad men can result in the providence of God. Can the deeds of a good man not also result in the providence of God? So, can your good deeds not result in the providence of God for what he wants to accomplish? Okay, so he will achieve his objective anyway, but we're talking about providence, which is providing for who? Those that love the Lord, to those who are the called according to his purpose, right? So is God's providence for all of mankind? Okay, we'll come back to that one in a minute. All right, here we want to go down the rabbit hole just a little further, just with Joseph. So now Joseph is now he does really good, and Potiphar lifts him up even higher, and everything that he does is blessed, and Potiphar is thrilled, and he doesn't know what's going on. He's doing so well. He just knows the food in front of him, and he knows he's getting richer, blessed, right? And then Potiphar's wife decides that Joseph's a good looking guy. Is this the providence of God? One of the things I'm asking you, if you're not listening closely, is this a miracle? Has anything that's happened so far in Joseph's life been a miracle? That's an underlying question. So, which I'm asking you, does it take a miracle for it to be the providence of God? Oh, yeah, I'm pointing at you. You're the only one over there. Raise your hand. Yeah. What does that mean? Were you answering to say, yes, it's a miracle? No. Okay. So it's the work of God, and God's doing it, but it's not necessarily a miracle. Okay, good. I got that. That's all I'm asking that question. So God's in control, even when the bad guy's doing bad things. All right. So, which is really kind of a mental thing. It's gymnastics that we do with that. But now let's go. So now when she accuses him of adultery, not adultery, of fornication, attempted rape, really, when she accuses him of that because he doesn't go along with it, was that the providence of God as well, even though it's a lie? What? Yes, I know, but it was a lie. It was a lie. And so lies are of who? The devil. So is the devil involved in the providence of God? Okay. It's virtually the same thing, but yeah, in all things he's working, or all things work together for good. You're getting ahead of me, but yes, that's where we're headed there. He's going to prison. Yeah. There are ordinary things that happen to people but he had this dream. Agreed. Exactly. Back to your passage, Genesis 15, verse 20. So yes, that's right. I'm really trying to get you to see a couple of things. One is I'm wanting you to see that everything we've talked about so far is what we would normally call normal. Which is kind of odd because we've had a couple of bad things happen already. Sold as a slave and now lying about you. And now to go with what you just said, now he goes to prison, the roundhouse. That he doesn't probably see he'll ever get out of. And he was 17 just a few days ago. Now he may be 19 and spends a couple of years in prison at least, we know. And so he's there 4 years and nothing. And all that dream doesn't look like it's coming. Do you think he was believing in the providence of God at this moment? Could have had his moments, couldn't he? Then he gets assigned these two guys, the baker and yeah. So he gets assigned these two guys to watch, and then they have this dream. And is the dream a miracle? Is that of God? Well, if we go along with what you've been saying, everything up to this moment was of God. So how do you say the dream's not of God, even if it comes to a man who isn't of God, who was a murderer, or attempted murder? So even the woman who lied, that's of God. And the people who wanted to kill his brother, that's of God. Y'all got some interesting views on providence. I'm just trying to go down. I'm trying to get you to think about what we tend to think. All right, so now he does get out. We know the end of the story. Let's leave him for a minute. Let's jump down to Job. Okay? Out of fear of God, a man truly righteous, no pious facade. One about whom God was accustomed to boast, and so one whom Satan desired the most. Yeah. So now we know that there was something behind the scenes. I don't think Job knew it. He may have known it later, I don't know. If he wrote the book, I don't know who wrote it. But anyway, so he doesn't know this, but behind the scenes, there's this thing going on between God and the angels, and a day when they come to present themselves. Why do they have to do that? I don't know. Do y'all know anything about that? I mean, was that Sunday? I don't know. Anyway, and Satan shows up. Does Satan go to church in heaven on Sunday? I don't know. You know, what's going on? I don't know anything about it. I'm just telling you that's kind of what happens, right? And God says, hey, have you considered Job? Right? And he said, well, you put a fence around him. You got him totally protected. And so God kind of says, you can just don't kill him. Do what you want. So now, when the devil's doing all this, and it's the devil, right? Is that the providence of God? Sorry, y'all both talked and I didn't hear either one. God allowed it, yes. Is that the providence of God when God allows something? So even though he's not for it, if he allows it, that's his providence. Yes, sir, did you say something else? Yes, we know that is for the testing of Job. The question is, do you define that as the providence of God when you are going through testing? Let me see if I can get you to where what I hear when I hear people talking about the providence of God doesn't engage all these aspects. Generally speaking, when people talk about the providence of God, they're talking about God answering their prayer and giving them what they need right now. They don't see the bigger picture and don't talk about the bigger picture. How someone who's doing wickedness could be a part of the providence of God. Because now what happens to Job? Let's walk down the path. What happens to Job? Are these miracles what happens to Job? What's the first thing that happens to Job? Sorry? Lost his livestock. Yeah, different kinds of livestock. I was always fascinated that only one guy lived. Y'all notice that? Just one guy to bring the bad news. So, yeah, always makes me think of that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean. They all got killed in that city. Well, who told the story? So one guy lives, right? Is your hand up? Yes, I want to hear you. Premise? You're not misunderstanding. I'm the one asking the questions, so you don't get to ask questions. No, go ahead.
Our ability to get out of something, or to the path that he gives us, for whatever it is, the strength to get out of the temptation, or the physical means to get out of something that when we get into a bad situation. I don't necessarily think that the negative, like the sin part of what is like the temptation or the struggle, I don't think that's the providence of God. That's God. He's allowing it to happen.
I'm glad you're saying this because I think people don't think that way sometimes because they're so busy saying all things work together for good. So what else are you going to say? I want you to hear the rest.
Of God is the pathway or the ability that we can get out.
Okay. So his allowing it to occur has nothing to do with that. So
the ability that he provides you with the strength, whatever it is, to get out of whatever that temptation is or whatever that situation is.
Okay, I like your thinking. Now, so I want you to go down that rabbit hole just a little bit with me in the book of Job. So in the book of Job, when God says you can have at him, and he's the one that proposes it. Remember, this is not Satan proposes it. God proposes it. God proposes it, and then he lets Satan loose. Why does God propose it and let Satan loose? You said a minute ago to test Job. The question that I have is this for Job's good? Is this for all of mankind's good? Or is this for something evil? Why is this happening? No, that's what y'all said. I'm just going along with you. I haven't said anything tonight. You go ahead. So there was a reason. What do you think the reason was? Was there a reason for Job, or was it only for us? Is this back? Mel made the point earlier that what happened to Joseph predominantly may not have been for Joseph's sake as much as it was for all Israel's sake over the process of time. What about Job? Is Job for Job's sake? Or is Job for Job's family's sake? Or is Job for Job's friends' sake? Or is Job for all of our sake? So all things that happened to Job work together for good, right? Back to kind of what you were saying back there. Okay? So Satan, doing what Satan did, was a part of God's work to provide for all of us. And therefore, what Satan did was essential. What Satan did was essential to provide for us the book of Job. Which God approved of. It would be hard not to say that that was his providence to provide for you a teaching that you needed for this time in your life. Yes, sir. He didn't approve it? Okay, so when he suggested it to Satan, he had no idea what Satan was going to do. This is God now. This is not me. This is God. You think God didn't know what Satan was going to do? Then who made the decision to do that? Satan or God that day? God made that decision, didn't he? So to say he didn't approve it, that means he didn't approve of what he did that day. No. Satan didn't throw it out there. God threw it out there. Satan went along with it. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Think about the cross. I don't want to go there yet. That's too much. I'm struggling with where am I at? I'm struggling. Okay. So now let's take Job. So his kids all die. Here's a question I've got for you. When his kids all die, was that a miracle? Or was that just a providence thing? That was just a natural thing that happened? Okay, so he believed that the Lord did that. Okay, which, by the way, fits into all the rest we said, that all things work together for good, that he makes sure the counsel of his will is accomplished. Okay. So now the question, this is not easy to think through. So the question then is, so when his kids died, I'm not saying that God liked it, but that it was a part of his understanding before he proposed this foreknowledge of God. So he knew what would happen. He proposed it anyway. He didn't do it. He didn't kill them, but he made it possible. Right? That's like God didn't tempt Adam and Eve to eat of that tree, but he sure put it where you could get to it, didn't he? Right? So the question that I'm trying to get you to answer now is, all these things that happen that were under the power of Satan, were any of those miracles? Yes, ma'am. A brave soul. Go for it. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Where I'm going with it is, could these things normally happen? Could a storm come, hit a house, and everybody inside of it die? Y'all ever heard of something like that happening? So y'all ever heard of, men coming in and robbing and taking everything and taking all the camels, taking all the oxen, taking all the sheep? That happens, right? They kill people. Does that happen? Yeah. So those things happen. Yes. Is what? Impossible? Okay, so all miracles are impossible. Okay. Okay. So you're confident in that one. Okay. I like that. I like the confidence. All right, so now we've aligned these to things that can happen. Yes, sir.
But when you take it as a whole, and if you look at like the entire story, then I think there's more to it than just coincidence. If just one of those things happens, then maybe it's coincidental, But if multiple things happen and you look at it from the big picture, hindsight, what it is, you look at it and see the whole story, then you say, okay, there was more to it than just a bunch of individual freak things that happen. You've got to figure out that there's some sort of, I guess, and kind of, I don't know where you're going, it's like a divine intervention, or there's something that's happening that's allowing it to happen for it to make that story.
Right. So you're suggesting that there is a different kind of miracle than it absolutely being impossible, but rather that it could be just so coincidental that it becomes impossible. Okay. I'm not going to argue with that. So now back to Job, right? So, yes.
I think we need to ask the question for purposes of the study. What was the provision for? Who was the provision for? And to assume that all of these things were provided for Job, you have to think of, well, for what purpose was he making this provision? Was it to discipline Job, or was it to let him know that this is a dangerous world we live in?
Exactly. Was the book of Job for Job, or was the book of Job for all of mankind? A message for us all.
Fine.
Well, I would agree with that. I'm not sure that I would totally squash Job out of it since he's mankind too. But yes, it had a bigger idea than the immediate. I didn't do it. Okay, so now we've looked. I'm just trying to get you. We taking too much time on Job. I don't want to stay on Job. If you got something else, they'll throw it at me, because I'm fixing to go now to Jonah. Oh, go ahead.
The major lessons for us provided by God. And one of the major lessons is we have no right to judge as these men did, because they never knew enough. And so we have to look at our fellow man, and if we see something that we think is bad in their lives, it's not up to us to judge, because we don't know how he got here.
Sure.
We don't know how he was brought up. We don't know. He may have been in a denomination and there's no idea that he could step out and find the truth elsewhere.
It's a good point. That's one of the major meanings of the book, obviously, because of his three friends got in trouble for what they said, accusing of things, and they didn't know. But of course, Job kind of had to repent too, because some of the things even Job said wasn't appropriate. And so too, everybody that reads the book struggles with it, because it's one of those books that makes you struggle with the idea of struggling and having bad things happen to you if you're a good person, which, okay. On that subject, before we move off of that, we're all cursed under the curse of the garden, and bad things do happen to good people, but also bad things happen to bad people, and that's taught all through the Old Testament. And so to say that only bad things happen to bad people is not true, but to say that only good things happen to good people, that's not true. But to say that bad things do happen to good people, that's obviously true with Job. But at the same time, to say that bad things predominantly happen to bad people, that's also true. But to judging, it's a really good message. And also the message of Job is the behind the scenes story. Now I want to move off of Job. That wasn't my purpose. My purpose in Job is to get you to think about what we tend to call providence, and what we kind of think narrowly back to, it's all just good stuff, and it's all natural stuff, and it all happens just one way, and any of it can happen to all of us. And we know that's what providence is. Let's go now to the book of Jonah. Another J. Okay, so in the book of Jonah, right? So he gets a message from God. We assume that's a miraculous kind of thing, because it's a divine being speaking to a human, right? A prophet that had prophesied other things, we know. It's recorded in the Kings. So he was already a prophet. He's already prophesied some stuff. So he doesn't want to do this. What's the main reason he didn't want to do this? Let's just talk about that a second before we get into what happens to him. Why does he not really want to do this? Why does he not want to go to Nineveh and preach at Nineveh? Yes, ma'am? He didn't want the people to be saved. Okay. So that's a preacher who doesn't want people to be saved. Yeah. Yes? Your hand was up for a second. Same thing. He didn't like the people. Different group of people, he didn't like them. Was that racism? What was that? Sinful? Sorry? Sort of seems like it. What was wrong with the people of Nineveh? Anybody know why he might not like them? What? I couldn't hear you. They were wicked. Yeah, they were pretty bad. But in everybody? So, I mean, how wicked were they? Well, they were mainly enemies of somebody. Who were they enemies of? His people. So there'd been stuff done badly to Israel, right? He really wants them. Have you ever had anybody, you mess with you, and you kind of like, when something goes wrong with them, you kind of like, well, that's karma, right? Don't y'all watch videos? That's instant karma. He's, says something ugly and drives past and whack, hits another car, and you go, ha, ha, ha. We all kind of are a little bit that way, right? We kind of like to see somebody get their comeuppance. And so he was kind of okay with that, looks like, right? Okay, and he didn't really want to be part of them repenting. He believed all along, at least he says at the end of the book, I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to let them off the hook. I knew all the time. That's why I didn't want to go. That's probably true, because it wasn't because he didn't want to go in the sense of the way we think about it. He didn't want to go and them turn. And he thought that they would, because this was of God. And he didn't want that to happen. He wanted whoever was coming to get them, he wanted that to happen, right? All right, so now let's get into what would we call providence this. So he gets on a boat. That was lucky, wasn't it? You just get there and the boat's leaving. That's pretty lucky, wasn't it? So he gets on the boat and he just goes. Where's he headed? Tarshish. It's about as far away as you can go. Tarshish is believed to be maybe in the Spain area. That's a long way on the Mediterranean Sea from where he was supposed to be going. Nineveh was only about, well, you can't get there direct. You have to go north to go over there, because it's just too bad of a desert to get over there direct. So if you're on foot especially, he had to have to go north and then go east and then go south to get to Nineveh. And probably traveled along one of those rivers so he'd have plenty of water. That's what he would have had to do. But now he's on a boat, and what does he do? Goes to sleep. Kind of reminds me of another fellow on a boat that I don't want to get into right now. Who was that? It's kind of like that, isn't it? Sound asleep. Like, reminds me a little bit of Daniel in the lion's den. So now he's asleep, like everything's okay. Got out of that one. What happens? A what? A storm. Storms are miracles, aren't they? Not really. So we don't normally think of a storm being a miracle now, do we? There are 36,000 storms a day across the world. 360,000 bolts of lightning hit the ground every hour, 24/7 in the world. So yeah, there's storms. The world's a big place. A lot of storms year round. Sometimes in the north hemisphere more, and sometimes in the south hemisphere more. But there's storms. Out on that ocean, there's a lot of storms out there on that ocean. A lot of lightning bolts. Okay, so there's a storm, and he's out on the ocean. Is this the providence of God that the storm comes? Is it of God? Would you say it's of God? Okay. So is it natural for a storm to follow you and get you? Is this a natural occurrence, or is this a work of God? So all things, he's in control and knows everything. Okay, so now this storm comes, and it's a bad one, right? How bad is it? What do the ship people do? Sorry? Start throwing everything overboard, even their tackle. I mean, they're throwing everything off. They're throwing their cargo off. Now, when you throw your cargo out, it better be a bad storm, right? Because you signed for that, right? This could hurt them financially, seriously hurt them, right? So they're throwing away stuff. And does it help? No. Yes, sir.
On the ship knew this thing was higher than them.
Yes.
On their go.
They've never seen a storm like this. Now, when you get out on the ocean and sailors have never seen a storm like that, that's a different storm, isn't it? So how bad a storm was this? I don't know. Maybe this is a hurricane. I don't know what that was. It doesn't tell. It's bad. It was the worst one they'd ever seen, and they thought they were all going to die. So they go down and say what to Jonah? Get up. Don't sleep. Call on your God. We're all going to die. Right? Did they believe in his God? No, it doesn't sound like it sounded like they were kind of, what do you call it when you believe in all the gods? What they call that? What's the word? What? I can't think of the word. Sorry. I'm getting old. What's the word when you believe in all of them? Like a pantheon kind of thing. So he believe in all of them kind of thing. Sounds like they may have had a few favorites, but what? Polytheism. There you go. I knew something about poly. But anyway, so they are all scared. They get him up, and he says what? It's me. It's probably me. Okay. It's probably me. Have you ever done that? Everything going wrong, you ever said, it's probably me? I've done that. In fact, sometimes I'll be honest with you. I think the only reason I'm doing as well as I'm doing is I'm married really good. Married a good woman. Yeah. I think if I was dealt with a hand, I probably should have been handed. I'd probably be in a different place entirely. But anyway, back to the text. So, what does he tell him to do? Throw him in the ocean, and what'll happen? Storm cease. How did he know this? Did God tell you? I guess he just thought, just drown me. I can't escape. He really wanted Nineveh to die, didn't he? Go ahead.
Rolling on. It's like God will save them, but He'll let me drown. I don't have to go to Nineveh.
Yeah.
It's like a win-win for them kind of thing, probably.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's it. Just let me die. At least I won't be helping Nineveh out then. Boy, you really hate somebody when you're willing to die to keep from saving them, aren't you? That's really mean. But, and he's a preacher, if you will. So don't ever trust preachers. Okay, so now what happens is they throw him out. They don't want to, though, do they? No, they don't want to. They try to keep from doing that. And finally, they see nothing that they're doing, praying and all that, ain't helping. They even call on his God a little bit, but nothing. So they throw him overboard, and what happens? Calm. It's just, well, that was simple. Well, now he's not even going to drown. I mean, you can stay afloat if the water's not too even I can float a little bit. I got enough fat. I can float pretty good, if it's calm. But in a rough sea, yes, sir. Yeah, they cast lots. How did that happen? Is casting lots a miracle? Ooh. So when Matthias is chosen in Acts chapter 1 by a lot, when the land of Israel is divided up by a lot, everybody got the land by a lot. In fact, that's what we believe the Urim and the Thummim was, right? It's just a lot. One stone, a black stone, another stone, a white stone, and depending on which one fell out, you knew it was either a yes or no. Just a lot. But every decision, according to Proverbs, is of the Lord. They believed it. That's how Matthias became the 12th apostle. Yeah, that's how it happened. That's why later, in Acts chapter 8, I believe it is, when Simon the sorcerer is offering money, what does he say to him? You have neither part nor lot in this matter. That's why they said that. You're not going to be one of us. Okay, back to the story now. So now you've got the man in the water. Water's calm. Is that of the Lord? Is it a miracle? Is it the providence of God? Okay, we'll get to the end game in a minute because the end game is really important. So now, what happens to Jonah? Swallowed by a fish. A prepared fish. Went to school. All fish do. All fish go to school. So he must have gone to school to learn how to do this. By the way, I know they say whales can't swallow anybody. I'm not advocating this as a whale, but I know of about 3 stories of whales actually swallowing people temporarily. Not for 3 days, but one guy, last guy's heard it was a humpback whale, and it was coming. He was scuba diving with gear on, and he was taking up cages for lobsters. They're lobster fishing. He got another guy on the boat, and so he's down, and he comes up to the top, and this fish comes up like this and closes up on him, right? It wedges his legs back here. He can't move his legs, can't move his body, and one of his arms can't move, and the mouthpiece falls out, and the mouth closes. And he thinks, I'm going to die. He said, I fell to the walls, and it felt like rock. It's that hard. Those muscles are that hard. I'm going to die. But he managed to get the mouthpiece back in. He's like, I think he said he had 30 minutes or 40 minutes of air left. And he said, well, I guess I'm going to be dead in an hour. That's good. Because I can't get out. I can't move. He's got me like this. And it's hurting. He thinks maybe his back's even broken. I mean, he's in there. He's tight. And he says, and the fish starts swimming really fast and then starts moving like this. And says, it goes down. He says, oh, no, we're going to the bottom. I'm going to die for sure from the pressure. There's still, there's a pocket in there where he's at. But anyway, he goes down, comes back up, and it wiggles like that. And then he says, felt like he's trying to throw him out. And sure enough, all of a sudden, he came out of his mouth, went in the air about 10 feet. And this is when his guy on the boat finally realizes he was being swallowed by a fish. He didn't know. He's still messing with the lobster, and he sees him upside down like a frog landing like that in the water. So it can happen. We saw a kayak. Y'all might have seen the kayak. The guy on a kayak swallowed by a humpback whale. It's just taking him down. But now that's not going to go to his stomach. So we assume that some other kind of fish swallowed a man, and he went all the way to his stomach, right? In any case, it's not something I want to do, any of those. No, don't want to do any of those. So was it God's providence that the fish just happened to be there at that particular moment? Was this a miracle? I mean, can this happen naturally? Do any of y'all ever heard of this ever happening? That a fish could be at the right place at the right time and swallow a man? But theoretically it's possible, I suppose, but it's kind of a weird thing to happen now. Is this the will of God? It's the providence of God? Is good thing? Yes.
The fact that the word says that the Lord prepared a fish.
Says it. Yeah, I think so.
That's how I've always read it.
I'd have to say you're right, but
Everything that we talked about, that's it.
yeah, sounds like it. And again, it's back to what his argument was, so many coincidental things, even if they are coincidences, there comes a point when you got so many coincidences that it's not really, it's like when you start doing the math on genetics. The math on genetics proves that we didn't happen accidentally. You know what I mean? It's just not possible. So, I mean, just the math, a thing can't happen. It gets so bizarre, it's not possible for it to happen. But it did happen, right? It's like killing the giant, right? David killed the giant. Is it possible to kill a giant with a stone in a sling? I know it's possible because it happened. So I know it's possible. But is it normally possible? Probably not, right? Probably not. Probably never would happen again, right? That's why it's a story. I mean, like most of you guys are bigger than me, so I know most of you guys could whip me really easily. So the little guys don't fight big guys, right? That's just kind of... They taught me that when I was pretty young. The big guys taught me that. So you don't take on giants. You lose, right? But he won, right? So where I'm at on all of this, and I'm trying to get you to be out on this. So how do you define providence? Is it easily defined? Y'all been studying it for a while, and I'm sitting here going, what is your view of providence? Is it only good things happening to you? Is it only when good people do good things? Is it only when something non-miraculous happens? Is it only when something miraculous happens? Is it only when you can easily see the purpose of it? Is it only when you agree with what happens? It's not any of those things, is it? So humility ought to make us believe in providence. But humility also should drive us to not be too quick to judge other people and what's going on in their life. We see bad things happening. Be careful. It may be the best thing that ever happened to them. There's that old story, It's a Chinese story. It's an old Chinese story. There's a guy living on the border between China and Burma or something like that. He's living on the border, and he has one son. And one day, a wild horse came along. He had a fence on his property, right? One day, this wild horse that they'd all seen, wonderful big stallion, comes running along and jumps the fence into his pasture. And all of his friends says, "Wow, that was good luck. That was a blessing." He said, "Really? How do you know that?" A few days passed. His son was trying to break that horse. The horse broke him, broke both of his legs. Everybody said, "Oh, that's bad fortune, hey? Bad fortune." He says, "Really? How do you know?" A few days passed, and the Chinese army came and were trying to get young men to go into the army. And he couldn't be taken because both of his legs were broken. Everybody says, "Wow, that's good fortune, isn't it?" He says, "Is it? Are you sure?" Yeah. A little bit of humility, right? Because all we've looked at tonight is that, yes, God works all things together for good. But quite honestly, 9 times out of 10, you have no idea what he's doing. So maybe a little humility, right? Because you really don't know. We do know that he intends to do good, ultimate good. But is it always ultimate good for me? I'm included in it. But I might not be the focus of it, right? So when you're being provided for, let's just say, he prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He anoints my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Okay, that's David, right? So yes, God's blessing David. But is God blessing David for David? Or is God blessing David because God's setting a standard and a bearer of being the anointed one of Israel that would reign and sit on the throne of David and be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? Is it really all for David? Or is it really for Jesus? And is it really all for Jesus? Or is it really all for the world? Is it really all for the world? Or is it really for the Father who has a plan? And he intends to be glorified, and every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. So when you think something terrible happened to somebody and you think, ooh, be careful. Be careful. So, humility. Absolutely believe in the providence of God, don't you? I believe God's working all things together for good. I believe he works everything according to the purpose of his will. Absolutely. Do I really know what he's doing? I know his ultimate thing, but I don't know the specific thing at this moment. I have no idea. So I don't know what's going on in your life. And the thing is you don't really know either. That's the thing. You think you know. God did this for me, and I'm so thankful. Wait a few weeks. I'm so thankful God gave me this job, and then didn't know I was going to have to do that for that job. You see, so providence is that thing, but it's maybe not the thing that we tend to think it is, which is just when the good stuff rolls our way. It may not be that. All right, well, our time's up. Thank you. Appreciate the participation, and I'm glad you don't know no more than you did when you came in here. Have a great evening.